January the 14th, 1969. Just off the coast of Oahu, Hawaii, the crew of USS Enterprise were preparing for yet another day of flight operations. But what should have been a routine exercise quickly spiralled into one of the most devastating fires in naval history. Explosions rocked the massive nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, killing 28 sailors, injuring over 300 more, and destroying 15 aircraft. It was a disaster that could have been much worse, but lessons learned from past fires and the heroic efforts of the crew helped prevent total catastrophe. This is the story of the 1969 USS Enterprise fire, the chain of events that led to the disaster, and how it changed naval firefighting forever. USS Enterprise was no ordinary aircraft carrier. Launched in 1960 and commissioned in 1961, it was the first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier in the world, a technological marvel that revolutionized naval warfare. Designed under Project SCB-160, Enterprise was originally intended to be the lead ship of a new class of 6 nuclear carriers. However, due to high costs, the rest of the class was cancelled, making Enterprise a one of a kind. Measuring 1,123 feet, it was the longest naval vessel ever built, with a displacement of 93,284 long tons. It ranked as the third largest carrier class after the Nimitz and the Gerald R. Ford classes. Unlike any other carrier, Enterprise was powered by 8 E-2 nuclear reactors, replacing conventional boilers and giving it unparalleled endurance at sea. It was capable of speeds exceeding 33 knots and was home to a crew of around 4,600 service members. Initially, Enterprise was launched without its planned RIM-2 Terrier missile launchers due to cost constraints. However, later modifications equipped it with Sea Sparrow missile systems for air defence, 3 Mark 15 Phalanx CIWS gun mounts, and 2 21-cell rolling airframe missile launchers. It also carried the Scan-Far Phased Array radar system, although it proved unreliable and was later removed. It was eventually replaced with the more advanced Aegis combat system, featuring the AN Spy-1 radar, which provided superior target tracking and engagement capabilities. Enterprise saw action almost immediately. In October 1962, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, it was dispatched as part of a naval force, enforcing the US blockade of Cuba. As tensions escalated between the United States and the Soviet Union over the installation of nuclear missiles on the island, Enterprise played a critical role in maritime operations, ensuring that Soviet ships carrying military cargo were intercepted and turned back. Alongside other carriers and surface combatants, Enterprise provided an imposing presence that helped deter escalation into full-scale conflict. During the Vietnam War, it became the first nuclear-powered carrier to see combat. In December 1965, Enterprise joined Task Force 77 in the Gulf of Tonkin and began launching combat sorties over North and South Vietnam. On December 2, 1965, it set a historic milestone as the first nuclear-powered carrier to engage in combat operations, delivering 167 tons of ordnance on enemy positions. Its aircraft flew thousands of sorties, delivering precision strikes on key infrastructure and reinforcing the US naval presence in the region. By the end of its deployment, Enterprise had firmly established itself as a major asset in the Vietnam War, demonstrating the strategic advantages of nuclear-powered aircraft carriers in sustained combat operations. But in 1969, just before another deployment to Vietnam, disaster struck. On the morning of January 14, 1969, USS Enterprise was conducting final battle drills and an Operational Readiness Inspection, an ORI, before heading back to Vietnam. Additional personnel were aboard to observe the ORI, and at 8:18 that morning, as the carrier turned into the wind to begin flight operations, disaster struck. A Zuni rocket loaded on an F-4 Phantom II overheated due to the exhaust from an MD-3A Huffer, a tractor-mounted aircraft starter. The rocket detonated, setting off a deadly chain reaction. The explosion tore through the Phantom, rupturing its fuel tanks and igniting a massive fireball that quickly engulfed the surrounding area. The initial blast sent shockwaves across the deck, knocking sailors off their feet and triggering a series of secondary explosions. Within moments, 3 additional Zuni rockets exploded in succession, tearing apart the aircraft that they were mounted on and ripping holes into the flight deck. Shrapnel and debris were thrown across the ship as flames erupted, fueled by the highly flammable JP-5 jet fuel that was now cascading down through the gaps in the deck into the hangar and lower levels. The chaos intensified as a 500-pound bomb, now overheated and unstable, detonated with devastating force, sending fiery wreckage hurtling through the air. This triggered a chain reaction, with multiple other ordnance stores igniting in rapid succession. Fireballs erupted as bombs cooked off in the intense heat, each explosion compounding the destruction. The raging inferno spread across the deck and down into the ship's compartments, endangering both flight operations and the integrity of the vessel itself. Over the course of the disaster, a total of 18 explosions tore through the Enterprise, reducing 15 aircraft including multiple F-4 Phantom IIs, A-7 Corsair IIs, RA-5C Vigilantes and an E-2 Hawkeye to smouldering wreckage and turning their flight deck into a charred battlefield. Despite the chaos, the crew fought back with relentless determination. Commanding Officer Captain Kent Lee, realising the importance of keeping smoke away from firefighting efforts, ordered the ship to continue turning into the wind. This crucial manoeuvre helped prevent the billowing smoke from further obstructing the deck, and allowed the crew to better assess the damage and tackle the growing inferno. Firefighters on board Enterprise raced against time, battling the flames with everything at their disposal. They used high-pressure hoses to douse the fires with seawater, while damage control teams deployed firefighting foam in an attempt to smother the burning jet fuel. Explosions continued to rock the ship as ordnance and fuel ignited, forcing the crew to adapt their strategy on the fly. Despite the overwhelming heat and chaos, sailors worked tirelessly to suppress the spreading blaze. As the inferno raged, the destroyer USS Rogers and the cruiser USS Bainbridge arrived to assist, positioning themselves alongside Enterprise to provide additional firefighting support. From just feet away, crews on Rogers used their own high-powered hoses to spray water onto the carrier's deck, while Bainbridge coordinated rescue efforts and medical assistance for the wounded. Their combined efforts proved critical in controlling the fire. Finally, after 4 grueling hours of intense firefighting, the flames were brought under control. The ship, though battered and scorched, had survived. It was a testament to the bravery, skill and discipline of the crew, who refused to give up in the face of catastrophe. The battle against the fire was over, but the challenges for Enterprise were far from finished. The carrier, though severely damaged, remained afloat and was escorted to Pearl Harbor by USS Bainbridge and USS Rogers. Later that same day, Enterprise underwent an initial damage assessment, revealing extensive destruction to the flight deck and below. Over the next 51 days, repairs were carried out at Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard, focusing on restoring critical flight operations capability before the ship could continue its scheduled deployment. Once deemed seaworthy, Enterprise resumed operations and proceeded to the Western Pacific, fulfilling its commitment to support the Vietnam War. Despite the tragedy, the ship's rapid recovery underscored the resilience of the crew and the strategic importance of nuclear-powered aircraft carriers in sustained military operations. The toll, however, was devastating. 28 sailors lost their lives, 314 were injured, and the ship sustained $126 million in damages, equivalent to over $1 billion today. A JAG manual investigation confirmed that the Huffer's exhaust overheated the Zuni rocket, triggering the initial explosion. An airman had noticed the issue, but was ignored due to the high noise levels on deck. However, Enterprise was better prepared than past carriers. 96% of the crew and 86% of the air wing had attended firefighting training, an enormous improvement over the USS Forrestal fire of 1967, where poor training had led to greater devastation. Key recommendations from the investigation included redesigning the air start units to vent exhaust upwards, increasing crew education on ordnance cook-off temperatures, improving communication between flight deck and damage control teams, installing redundant firefighting systems, and cross-training dentists as anaesthetists to allow for more emergency surgeries. These lessons help shape future firefighting and safety procedures aboard all US Navy carriers. In just 4 hours, the USS Enterprise fire claimed 28 lives, injured hundreds, and left lasting scars on the ship and its crew. But the bravery of the sailors and the lessons learned from the disaster led to major improvements in naval aviation safety. Enterprise went on to serve for another 43 years, participating in operations across the globe, including Operation Frequent Wind during the fall of Saigon in 1975, where its aircraft played a crucial role in evacuating American personnel and South Vietnamese refugees. In 1988, Enterprise took part in Operation Praying Mantis, launching airstrikes against Iranian naval assets in retaliation for the mining of the USS Samuel B. Roberts. And during the 1990s, it enforced no-fly zones over Iraq as part of Operation Southern Watch, and later launched airstrikes during Operation Desert Fox in 1998. In the aftermath of the September 11 attacks, Enterprise was one of the first carriers to respond, conducting airstrikes against Taliban and Al-Qaeda positions in Afghanistan. In its final years, the carrier continued its role in global security operations before being decommissioned in 2017. USS Enterprise remains one of the most iconic warships in naval history, a testament to the resilience of the men and women who served aboard her. Thanks very much for watching. Please take a moment to hit the like button and consider subscribing.